You know that feeling, right? That little internal groan when a request comes your way, maybe a friend needing a huge favor or a colleague wanting to pick your brain for ages, or you get invited to something you just dread. Inside, everything is just screaming, no. But then out comes.
Yes.
Yes. It's almost automatic, isn't it, that conflict? It's actually incredibly common. So today we're doing a deep dive into this whole area, the psychology behind people-pleasing. It's fascinating, but also, pretty frustrating sometimes. We're going to explore why we fall into these patterns, what they actually cost us, the hidden costs, and most importantly, how you can start setting boundaries confidently without feeling rude or selfish or just drowning in guilt afterwards. We've gathered quite a bit of material, psychological research, practical tips, communication strategies, basically, to help you reclaim your time, your energy, and really your authentic self.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here is how sneakily people-pleasing can weave itself into our lives. At its heart, it's about consistently putting others' needs, their desires, ahead of your own, often significantly so, to the point where your own well-being suffers. And it gets praised a lot, doesn't it? People see you as kind or so helpful, generous. But underneath all that, it can quietly lead to pretty profound self-neglect, internal conflict, even resentment, actually. And that just chips away at your sense of who you are. So our mission today isn't just to talk about the problem. We really want to equip you, our listener, with actionable strategies, things you can actually do. We want to help you pinpoint maybe the deeper roots of this behavior in yourself, recognize the real costs day to day, and then hopefully with some new confidence, start reclaiming your time, your energy, and crucially, your authenticity. It's about moving from that sort of knee-jerk yes to maybe an intentional no, or even just an empowered yes.
Okay, so let's start with looking in the mirror. How do you know if this is you? If you might be a people pleaser? It's probably more common than many people think. Just think about these kinds of situations. Do you find it consistently hard to say no, even when you're totally swamped, overwhelmed? Are you always worrying about what others think of you? Maybe even, agonizing over it. Do you often agree to things you genuinely don't like? Or find yourself saying sorry for stuff that isn't even your fault? These are just some of those classic signs.
Right. And that leads us straight to the big question, why? Why do we do this? The roots are rarely simple. They often run quite deep into our personal histories, our ingrained psychological patterns. One big driver, and a lot of our sources point to this, is low self-esteem, insecurity. If you don't fully value your own wants, your own needs, or feel inherently worthy, you might kind of subconsciously look for validation from outside, approval from others. There can be this belief that going above and beyond, doing extra is the only way to be liked or accepted or even just seen as valuable. And sometimes this gets tangled up with perfectionism too, that deep need for everything, including how others feel about you, to be just right. So you try to control things by just being agreeable all the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If your self-worth is all tied up in what other people think, then saying no feels like a huge risk, like you might lose that approval. But you mentioned something earlier, fawning as a trauma response. Can you say a bit more about that? Does that mean people are always aware that's where it's coming from?
That's a really critical point. Fawning, yes, it's recognized as a specific trauma response. It's essentially where someone appeases a perceived danger or an aggressor to prevent harm. It's a survival mechanism, really. And it can show up as extreme people-pleasing, so extreme that individuals might actually struggle to even recognize their own needs or preferences because there's this underlying fear, often subconscious, about what might happen if they don't comply. And to answer your question, no, it's definitely not always conscious. Many people who have this fawning response aren't aware of its origins in trauma. For them, it just feels normal. It's their ingrained way of coping, which makes it incredibly hard to change without some real self-exploration or sometimes professional help. And beyond those individual factors, our past experiences, our upbringing, socialization, they play a huge, often invisible role. Things like growing up in very authoritarian households or with what some call tiger parenting, where love or attention felt conditional, conditional on achieving things or behaving in certain ways. That can instill this deep need to constantly perform and please. Or childhood trauma, where being agreeable, non-confrontational was maybe the only way to feel safe or keep things calm. And sometimes it's simpler. We just model behavior we saw in our parents or other important figures. Plus, there are societal expectations, especially, frankly, for women, to be caring, nurturing, helpful, which is fine, but without healthy boundaries, it just leads straight to burnout, feeling stretched too thin.
Right. So we're often kind of wired for it from early on, psychologically, socially. It's no wonder yes just sort of flows out sometimes. But, okay, while that constant yes might seem harmless, maybe even good for keeping the peace in the short term, It carries some really serious hidden costs. It's not just inconvenient, it can be really damaging. You quickly end up feeling emotionally depleted, stressed out, anxious, basically heading straight for burnout. It's a tough cycle.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the consequences are pretty severe. They touch every part of your life. The most immediate and maybe the most devastating is neglecting your own self, your authentic self. When you're constantly prioritizing others, your own physical health, your mental health, your essential self-care, even your personal goals, they just get pushed to the bottom of the list again and again. Our sources really hammer this home. You literally cannot genuinely help anyone, not effectively, not sustainably, if you yourself are exhausted, unhealthy, running on fumes. You just can't pour from an empty cup, right? And this often leads to major internal conflict. Resentment just starts building up. Saying yes out of obligation, not because you genuinely want to, can breed this silent anger, frustration, this feeling of being used. And that resentment doesn't just stay inside. It can leak out as passive aggression, sarcastic comments, little digs, maybe avoiding people. And ultimately, that really erodes your relationships. Plus, you're not living authentically if you're always hiding how you really feel just to keep others happy. It makes it hard for people to know the real you, and maybe even harder for you to feel connected to yourself. And, well, people might start taking your kindness for granted. Or worse, some might intentionally exploit it because they know you won't push back. It can actually make you a target.
Wow, that's a powerful point. It's not just you suffering, but your relationships can actually be weakened by always trying to please.
Exactly. And there's also a really interesting impact on your mental energy, your cognitive resources. Research suggests willpower, our ability for self-control, making deliberate choices is limited. Some call it ego depletion. So if you're constantly spending mental energy trying to please others, trying to manage how they feel, suppressing your own feelings, there's just less left over for your own goals, for self-control in other areas, for making decisions that are actually good for you. Even small things like telling little white lies to avoid conflict can have a physical cost. Our brains notice when our actions don't match our feelings. It triggers stress responses, tiny changes in skin conductivity, pulse, breathing, even the pitch of your voice. These little stressors, piled up over time, contribute to negative health impacts. They keep that fight or flight system subtly switched on, which just wears you down.
Wow. So it's not just feeling tired emotionally, it's a literal physical and mental drain. Okay, that distinction between genuine kindness and people-pleasing becomes super clear then, doesn't it? It really shows that saying yes out of obligation isn't just about letting yourself down, it's actively harming yourself in some ways. So if we recognize this harmful cycle, how do we start to break it? Because that's the million-dollar question, right? What can we actually do? This isn't about becoming selfish, swinging the pendulum way over. It's about finding that sweet spot, respecting yourself and others enough to set clear, healthy boundaries. This is where we move from just understanding it to actively, shaping a new way forward.
Precisely. And the key concept here isn't about being aggressive, it's about assertiveness. It's a communication style. It's based on mutual respect. You express your thoughts, your feelings, your needs directly, honestly, but you also respect the rights and beliefs of the other person. It's about being effective in how you communicate, making sure your voice is heard, your needs are considered without, steamrolling anyone, but also without letting yourself get walked over. It's like self-advocacy, but with empathy baked in.
Okay, that's a crucial difference. Assertive, not aggressive. Clear, not harsh. And the good news is, our sources have some brilliant practical phrases and techniques you can start using, like right away, to say no graciously, or at least more effectively. Let's dive into some of these tools. For instance, if someone asks for help you genuinely can't give, try offering alternatives or resources. You could say something like, this isn't a good time for me to take that on, but I know of some resources that might help, and then maybe share a link or suggest someone else. It shows you still care, even if you can't do it yourself. Oh, I like this one from Michael Thompson, the relatable ARG. I have to save myself from eating myself. It's funny. It's honest about being overwhelmed. Often people just get it because they feel that way too sometimes. It kind of breaks the tension.
Yeah, humor can definitely help.
And then there's Natalie Lou's soft no. It's polite but firm with just a tiny brief explanation. Like, no, I can't make it that day. I'm actually really stacked already, and I know I'll need an early night to avoid completely exhausting myself. And that works well with people who are generally understanding.
Keeps it simple.
Ryan Holiday gives us that powerful reminder about opportunity cost. Remember, every yes to one thing is automatically a no to something else. You value your time, your energy, other commitments. So you can honestly frame it like, I wish I could, but I need to say yes to some other priorities right now. It focuses on your needs without making the other person feel rejected personally. And for those tricky work requests outside of work hours, especially if you're a freelancer, Anna Codreirado suggests a compensated professionalism angle. Something like, I'd love to help with that, but since it's work-related, I would need to treat it as a compensated project. It sets a clear boundary about your professional time.
That's a good one for protecting your expertise.
And sometimes just the straightforward "I don't" statement works. It frames it as part of who you are, making it feel less like a negotiation. Thanks for asking, but I just don't do large-scale catering instead of I can't right now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe for a bit of fun, E.B. White's classic evasion. I must decline, for secret reasons, a bit mysterious, often effective.
Ha, yes, those are great practical phrases. But beyond the exact words, there are broader strategies, mindset shifts too. They're incredibly helpful. First off, learn to stall for time. This is huge. Instead of that instant yes, try saying, let me check my calendar and get back to you, or I need a little time to think about that before I commit. That pause, it's invaluable. It gives you space to actually check in with yourself. Do I have the capacity? Do I want to do this? What am I giving up if I say yes? It breaks that reflex. Then when you communicate, use I statements. This is basic assertiveness 101, but so effective. Focus on your feelings, your needs, not accusations. So instead of you're always taking advantage of me, which just makes people defensive, try I feel taken advantage of when I end up doing all the washing up. See? It states your reality without blame. For people who are really persistent, the broken record technique can be surprisingly useful. You just calmly, persistently repeat your refusal without getting drawn into long explanations like that example with the salesperson just repeating, thank you, but I'm not interested. It feels weird, but it works by not giving them anything new to argue with. A more structured approach is fact, feel, want. I notice I did all the washing up this week. Fact, I'm feeling a bit taken advantage of. Feel, could you please handle it tomorrow? Want. It's clear, direct, non-blaming.
Those are really concrete. What about the digital side? We're always connected now.
Right. Digital boundaries are essential. Things like pausing email notifications after work hours, maybe deleting work apps from your phone on weekends, using do not disturb mode intentionally. You have to actively create that space. And crucially, block out downtime in your calendar. Like literally schedule me time as a non-negotiable appointment. Whether it's reading, exercise, watching Netflix, whatever helps you recharge. Treat it like a serious meeting. If you do agree to help someone, set clear limits up front. Be specific about your availability, the time, the day, the location. I can help you move boxes for an hour on Saturday morning from 9 to 10, but I have to leave right at 10. It manages expectations right away.
I think that stall for time one is just gold. It breaks that immediate reaction.
Yeah.
But okay, what about the guilt? Because when you start doing this stuff, especially if you've been a people pleaser forever, you're going to feel guilty.
Yeah.
Or worry about how people will react.
You're absolutely right. Those feelings are totally normal, expected even. Which leads to another key strategy. Avoid making excuses. No really is a complete sentence. Giving too many reasons just opens the door for negotiation or for people to pick holes in your explanation. Try to use a decisive but still polite tone. Remind yourself. Period. Full stop. End of sentence. Also, a really vital step is to identify your core priorities and values. What truly matters to you? Where do you want to spend your limited time and energy? Knowing this gives you a strong internal compass. It makes it easier to confidently say no to things that don't align because you know you're saying yes to something more important to you. And on the topic of apologies, don't apologize if it's not your fault. Learn to differentiate genuine empathy, like, I'm really sorry that happened to you, from taking the blame for something that's completely outside your control. Also importantly, prepare for pushback. When you change long-standing patterns, especially patterns that maybe benefited others, people might react. They might be disappointed, confused, maybe even a bit passive-aggressive. That's normal. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means they're adjusting to the new boundaries. Acknowledge their feelings if you want, but hold your ground kindly and firmly. And remember, start small and practice. Don't try to overhaul everything overnight. Begin asserting yourself in low-stakes situations, maybe role play with a friend. There's that idea of choose it until you become it. Confidence really does grow with practice. Each small win builds momentum. Finally, be kind to yourself. Use positive self-talk. Celebrate every single win, no matter how small it feels. Remind yourself, my voice matters, or I am worthy of respect just for being, not just for doing. This helps slowly rewire those deep beliefs about your value.
That's really solid advice. It feels like a whole new way of thinking about interactions and about yourself. And you're right, starting this journey, it definitely brings up that guilt, that fear of abandonment sometimes. It's natural to worry how people will react when you start changing.
Exactly. Those feelings are completely valid, but here's the reassurance. Establishing healthy boundaries rarely destroys important relationships. Actually, it often makes them stronger, more honest. The people who truly value you for who you are, not just for what you do for them, they will adjust. They'll respect your needs. They'll appreciate the authentic you, not the version who's always trying to guess what they want or trying to earn their approval. It's actually a pretty good test of a relationship's strength.
So what does all this mean for you listening right now? Well, ultimately, breaking free from these people-pleasing patterns. It's a journey. It definitely takes self-awareness, it takes practice, and yeah, it takes a fair bit of courage to push through those uncomfortable feelings at first, but it's a journey that's so worthwhile because it's really about honoring your authentic self, stepping into your own power, and building a life that actually aligns with your values, your desires.
And just knowing that crucial difference between genuinely wanting to help, which is wonderful, and feeling obligated to please others because of fear or insecurity or needing that external nod, that's the key. That's how you move towards a life that feels more integrated, more fulfilling, less resentful. A life where your yes really means something and your no is respected by others, and just as importantly, by yourself.
So here's a thought to maybe carry with you this week. If you truly cannot be everything to everyone, and we've definitely learned today that you can't, and you shouldn't even try, then who do you really want to be everything for? Start there. Start with understanding your own needs, your own core values, and just watch how things might begin to shift.